So I'm Jack Watson, UI UX designer, illustrator, animator, donut connoisseur. For today's illustration challenge in Illustrator, it's kind of a tongue twister, we'll be looking at symbols in Illustrator in the context of creating a map. First, let's go ahead and find our files for today in the description below this video. You'll find a link to download your resources to create with us. There'll also be a link to our Discord, all of the links. I think our mod Cody's going to go ahead and share those in the chat with you. But let's hop into Illustrator. We got a lot to talk about today with symbols. So, in Illustrator, in your starter file, I do have a base map started for you. If you want to create a camping, we're creating like a camping kind of woods map today with me. If you want to create that along with me, feel free to use this starter map that I've got for you, or you can delete all of this and create your own. It's really kind of up to you, but again, to kind of focus on creating the map, I've kind of started it for you so we can take a look at symbols today. So we're going to need to make different symbols to kind of cover in our map, and they're all going to be kind of camping themed. If you did want to make your own map, you can see here I've just used simple shapes kind of with fills in them, and then for the different roads I've actually just used it's just a path with a stroke applied to it. So if you did want to create your own today your own map to get started, I am working with the Essentials Classic workspace. Under Window Workspaces, Essentials Classic. You are going to want to make sure that you've got your symbols panel visible under Window, and navigate down to Symbols and make sure that that is checked on. If it's not visible, it's probably next to your swatches if you're using the same workspace as me. The other thing that before we get started, the other thing that you want to make sure that you have on, it's just going to make things a little bit easier, is under View, I've got Smart Guides turned on. That's going to make it easier to kind of snap elements in our scene. So we need to make some artwork, and I'm going to start out with some happy little trees. So in your shapes, in your toolbar, you might see the rectangle, you might see the ellipse, whatever kind of shape you see. If you click and hold on the shapes in your toolbar, you'll be able to access all of the different tools, or the different shape tools that you have available in Illustrator. I'm actually going to start with the polygon. We're going to create a pine tree, so I'm going to grab the polygon tool, and you probably see the default fill and stroke here, the white fill and the black stroke, so I'll switch to that just so you can kind of see what it should look like in your workspace. And if I start to drag out, you're going to see I'm going to get a polygon here. If I hold down shift, so I'm going to hold down the shift key, it's going to constrain my shape. Yes, Cody says happy little trees. Also hello to Becky, Carol, Sean, Corey, everybody over on Behance and on YouTube. Make sure you say hi in the chat. So I'm going to just hold down shift to keep my shape constrained, mostly because I want it to be like at a 90 degree so that it's not kind of tilted, because we want our trees to be kind of straight up and down. And then if I zoom in here, and I use my little magnifier, you can see that I've got a little diamond shape next to my polygon. It's a live shape tool. Oop, come on. There we go. So I can drag down to increase the number of sides on this little diamond, or I can drag up to decrease the number of sides to get a nice triangle for our pine tree. Although we do need to make it a little bit more narrow, so with the selection tool, I'm just going to drag in to make it a little bit more narrow. And then holding down shift, I'm going to drag down to make it a little bit smaller. You know, you can kind of use your judgment here how large you want your trees to be by pulling it over on top of your map again. I'm just working outside of the artboard on this area that's the canvas, because anything that I create out here is not going to export out with my final file, so it's kind of like my little working space. And welcome to Ginger over on YouTube joining us from Florida. Kind of feels like Florida here today in the Midwest, to be honest with you. With our heat wave. So I'm going to grab the eyedropper tool, and I'm going to grab my green grass color as a base, because I want everything to kind of be consistent color palette wise, but I am going to make it a little bit darker. So I want my trees to have good contrast against my grass. So if I double click on my color picker here, you can see here the color picker kind of has this funky sort of like gradation of the green color that I have picked from my hue slider on the right. And if you drag sort of left to right, you're going to increase or decrease the saturation. The saturation is the intensity of the color. And if you drag from top to bottom, that's adjusting the value. So it's going to make it lighter or darker, add more white or more black to your color. So I'm going to do both. I'm going to drag to the kind of bottom right that's gonna darken as well as increase the saturation on my green. But you can also adjust the hue if you wanted to make these a little bit more green. I'm just gonna slide it a little bit up towards the more blue values, versus if I dragged it down, that would make it a warmer color, so we would get more into the browns. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit OK. And if you again wanted to check the contrast, you can just drag that over top of your original map, and you can kind of see what the color contrast looks like. The last thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab the curvature pen tool, and this is where smart guides are going to help you out. You can see as I hover over the center of my tree, I can click and I can drag down with the curvature pen tool, just round it out a little bit. Okay, so we've got a pine tree. Let's add a different kind of tree here. I don't know what these kind of trees are called. They're the ones that have like the fluffy leaves on top. So I'm going to switch to the blob brush tool, which is underneath your regular paintbrush tool. So if you click and hold on the paintbrush tool, you can open up your blob brush tool. And this allows you to kind of create free-form sort of shapes. And when I select them, you're going to see, I'll select it with the direct selection tool so you can see all of the points. It's going to create a singular shape created out of all of those paintbrush strokes. If you want to edit the blob brush, you can double click on the blob brush, and since I'm using my mouse, under fidelity, that's going to be how close to your original sort of scribbles or your line is, or if you increase the smoothness, it's going to help you out if you're working with a mouse like me to make the shapes a little smoother, a little rounder. So we're going to increase that up. The other thing I'm going to increase is the size. Sean says fluffy trees work, thanks. Also, hello to Gerard. So this is going to depend on the size of your trees. So I'm going to increase the size of this up just a little bit, and I'll hit OK to see. I might need to adjust it a couple of times. This might be a little bit too large. Well, actually, no, I think that'll be okay. So you'll have to adjust that sort of to taste depending on the size of your document, increase or decrease that size of your brush. And I'm just going to create something that's sort of vaguely tree-like. So I'm just going to create a scribble that's going to kind of be the top part of my tree. And if I wanted to expand on this, so like, oh, I want this to be a little bit longer, if I click to add another shape, you're going to see that it's going to merge with my original shape. So everything kind of becomes one sort of blob. In the blob brush settings, if you check on merge only with selection, that'll create separate shapes. In this case, I'm going to leave that unchecked because I want just one shape. And then the final thing we're going to do to create our tree is we're going to use the eyedropper again, and we're going to select that stroke color. Again, we'll darken this a little bit, so double clicking into my stroke to open up the color picker. I'm just going to make this kind of a dark brown, in line with my original kind of orange color from that. And now I need to decrease the stroke size, so I'm going to select my stroke size up here in the control bar. You can also get to it from the stroke panel, which is open over here, and I'm just going to set it to 1. So I'm going to kind of set it back down to the smaller size. Also, welcome in, Nate. And I'm just going to use my arrow key to increase it up. I'll start with maybe something like 5 to 10. And switching to my pen tool, we're going to keep it super easy with the pen tool today. I'm just going to click in the center of my tree, and holding down shift to create a straight line, I'll just drag down to create kind of the trunk of my tree. Actually, that stroke size, it looks like I nailed it on the first try. All right, and I'm gonna, I'll scale this down a little bit. So I'm gonna drag to select both of my tree shapes, and I'm just gonna grab the corner here and hold down shift to again constrain it. If you don't hold down shift, it'll do weird things like squash and stretch my shape, so I don't wanna do that. So I just wanna keep it constrained. And then, I might need to adjust my stroke weight down a little bit now that I've got my tree a little bit smaller. You can add some branches with the pen tool just by clicking sort of in the center where your smart guides show you where the center of your line is. So I'm making sure that I'm coming off of that line. And I'm going to click and I'm going to drag with the pen tool to create an anchor handle. I'm dragging outward because I want my branch to go outward from my tree. And then I can just click up at the top here to add a kind of a curved branch. And then I can do the same thing again. I can deselect that line, go to the center of my tree, and I can create a little shorter branch up here. All right, so the last thing that we're gonna make, the last symbol that we're gonna make, let's move this over a little bit. It doesn't need to be perfectly centered. It needs to be more visually centered than mathematically centered. The last shapes we're gonna need to make here are for a cabin. This is meant to be a camping sort of map. So we need to indicate where people can actually camp in some cabins. So I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna grab another polygon. Let me know in the chat. We've got a live chat on Behance and on YouTube. So chat, let me know what kind of elements we should add to our design. We could add some tents if we wanted to. We're gonna add we got some boats because we've got a little lake. I'm gonna create another polygon. Again, holding down shift here. I'm using this to get another triangle, so I'm gonna decrease down that shape. Ryan's in the chat. Welcome, Ryan. Welcome, Nate. Welcome, Arif. But we don't want our cabin to be green, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the eyedropper tool again to grab my kind of brown campfire. That's a great idea. I love that idea. We should add a campfire. So I'm going to create a little triangle here, and I'm going to switch the fill and stroke over here where it says swap fill and stroke. It's a little tiny icon next to your fill and stroke, and that's going to give us a dark brown sort of roof shape for our cabin. And now we're going to hold down again on the shape tools. We are going to switch fishing pole, Sean says. Oh, deer. We should do some deer. Mountains would be a good idea. I'm going to hold down on the shape tool to switch to the rectangle tool so we can create kind of the bottom base foundation of our cabin. I'm going to make it a little bit long like this. I think Wade, if I recall Wade, I don't know if Wade's in the chat, Wade did a Photoshop challenge making maps and did some mountains using brushes if you want to go check that out. So I'm going to drag and to select both of my cabin shapes. I'm going to move it over a little bit to give myself some room. And then holding down Option or Alt and dragging, that'll make a copy of my building here. But I don't want to drag it kind of all over the place. I want to keep it in line with my other shapes. So I'm going to hold down Shift as well. So I'm holding down Alt and I'm holding down Shift, Alt or Option and Shift to drag out another sort of base for my cabin. And it'll make sense in a second here. So I'm going to select this side over here. And this is kind of, I'm adding dimension to my building. So this is going to be kind of like the side of my building. And if we imagine our light source is kind of coming from over here, from the top left, sort of imagining it's, the sun, and that's the position of the sun here. I'm going to lighten the side of the building. So double clicking on my fill color to bring up the color picker. I'm just going to drag it again up to the left and to the top to lighten that and decrease the saturation a little bit. And so now you can kind of start to set up how you want where you're going to have your roof shape defined and also a little bit of lighting. So again, switching to my pen tool, now I've created a nice guide using the copy of my roof shapes for my kind of flat side of the roof here. So I'm just going to follow, clicking on each of those points using Smart Guides to create the top left of my cabin. And then once I've got it kind of blocked in, since that's even closer and at an angle, to the sun that I've kind of imagined here, I'm going to double click into my color picker again on my fill color here, and I'm going to lighten that even more. So now we've kind of defined the structure of our building and given it a little bit of dimension using lighting. And we can add some details here. So let's switch to our rectangle tool again, and dragging out, I can create kind of a door shape, keeping in mind sort of the size of my cabin. This is kind of the bottom half, so how large would the door need to be on this. We can make this a little fancier by switching to the direct selection tool, which is this little white arrow. Clicking on the top left points and holding down Shift to click on the top right point. I can select both of those and I'll get these little corner widgets here. They're these little target looking shapes in the corners here. These are your live corner widgets. I'm going to drag them inward to just kind of round them out to create a more interesting looking door. And then I can also drag this again using Smart Guides to make sure that it's kind of centered with my shape here. And to make something that kind of matches my door, I'll add a round window. I'll line it up using Smart Guides with my door so that they're both centered. And if I hold down Shift normally, I'll make a nice perfect circle, right? Keeping their shape constrained. But if you also hold down Option or Alt, you can drag out from the center. So you can kind of line everything up and then drag out a shape from the center. Ryan's also suggesting a picnic table. That would be a good idea, like a picnic area. And then I'm going to drag out another rectangle at the top here to create kind of a chimney. This shape I need to go to Object, Arrange, Send to Back to place it kind of behind my roof line. Arched doorway. Its Zillow Street value just skyrocketed. Thanks, Ryan. Yeah. For sure. But also those doors are kind of expensive if you ever have to replace them because they're all custom made. All right, I'm gonna select my my chimney here. The lighting doesn't make any sense now because it is kind of behind, so I need to darken it. And then I'm also, because these are on the shadow side of my building, I'm gonna hold down Shift to select my door, my window, and my chimney all at once. And I'm gonna darken all of these since they're all kind of in shadow and make this the darkest value on my cabin. All right, you can keep adding more details to this, but I do want to get into the symbol sprayer and adding these to my design. In order to do that, I need to make all of these symbols first. So in that symbols panel that we talked about before, which is under window and symbols, we're going to add each of these by clicking on this little plus. So I'm going to select all of the elements of my cabin first, and then down here in the lower right of my symbols panel, I'm going to hit on this plus. And now for what we're doing today, we don't really need to worry about the symbol type or anything like that. All of the default options are going to be fine. And yes, Ryan is sharing some pro tips over in the YouTube chat. Send to back keyboard shortcut is Control Shift and then left square bracket. So if you want that keyboard shortcut. I always forget, I'm not the best at keyboard shortcuts, you guys. I try, but at the ones I need to use the most, I remember. So we're going to name this cabin just kind of so we know what it is. And if we hit OK, you're going to see it's going to add our little symbol over in our symbols panel there. It's going to be handy in a sec. And I'm going to do the same thing over here, adding each of these trees in here. We'll say tree 01. And we'll name this tree 02. I could have named these fluffy tree and pine tree, but you know, it's fine. Okay, so now we've got our symbol set up. Let's talk about the symbol sprayer. You use that one a lot because you always have too many shapes in your comp. That makes sense. I'm just really, for some reason, I'm really bad at remembering that one in particular. I need to use it more so I can remember it. So the symbol sprayer is going to look like this little, it looks like a spray can. It kind of reminds me of, you know, if you've ever used Kid Picks back in the day. I don't know why this tool kind of reminds me of that. But the symbol sprayer is going to allow you to kind of throw some symbols down on your artboard, which are these little guys, kind of like using a brush, right? But if we click and hold on the symbol sprayer, there's a ton of different options in here. And maybe you've kind of explored these or maybe you haven't, but they're going to allow us all these different options to modify our symbols. So if I go into the symbol sprayer tool, I need to make sure that I pick the symbol that I want to use. So you can see here my pine tree is currently highlighted. If I wanted to use any of the other symbols, I just need to make sure that I click on them first. And then I can just kind of start to drag into the spaces here to add the trees. So let's say I want to add these kind of along the bottom edge here to kind of fill in my green space. I'm going to add some kind of over here. I'm just kind of throwing them in and then I can modify them later. So I'm just going to throw boop, 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 a whole bunch of trees in here. Maybe we'll add some over here. And now once I've got them in, if I click and hold, I can switch to some of these different options. So the first one down here, the second option, is called the symbol shifter. And what that allows me to do is if I click on my symbols and I drag, it'll move my symbols in the direction that I want them to go. So I can kind of push and pull these around so I can start to kind of have them a little bit less bunched up, a little bit more organically placed in my design. So I don't want them in such a straight line. I can kind of pull them, and I can pull them kind of in the direction that my mouse is kind of pulling, if that makes sense. So the next option under here is going to be the symbol scruncher tool, and this is also going to push and pull. So if I click, it's actually going to pull them in, so it's going to scrunch, like pull them closer together. If I hold down Alt or Option, it's actually going to start to push them farther apart. So I can kind of decide, depending on the placement here, if I want them to be closer or farther apart. So I might want to pull them, scrunch them in closer over here, and I might want to push them farther out over here. So I can start to push and pull some of these symbols, depending on if I'm holding down Alt or if I'm just clicking regular. Can you do more than one symbol at a time? Yes, you can. So right now I'm in this, if I open up my layers panel, I have this symbol set. All I have to do if I wanted to switch symbols, so let's go ahead and switch to our trees, is go back to the symbol sprayer tool. So now I'm spraying and I've picked this symbol so I can start to spray in some of these other trees if I wanted to. But if you wanted to have like multiple symbols selected at once, you wouldn't be able to do that. You just kind of can choose one symbol at a time here to kind of throw in here. So I'll just throw some in here. But you can have them all kind of in the same set, if that makes sense. And then we can go down and we can just kind of push and pull some of these as well. The symbol sizer tool is going to scale. So if I click normally with the symbol sizer, let's make sure we've got our, in order to edit the different groups though, you need to make sure that you have the right one selected. So if I want to edit the pine trees, I need to go back and click on the pine trees in my set. So clicking normally is going to scale these. And then if I wanted to make them a little bit smaller, I'm going to hold down the Alt or Option key, and that's going to scale them down. So similar to the way that the symbol scruncher works, if I wanted to scale them down, I need to hold down Alt. So some of the ones that are maybe closer to the road and things like that, I might scale those down. Things that are farther away, I make them a little bit larger, if that makes sense. So that is the symbol sizer. That's the fourth one down. The symbol spinner tool we're probably not going to use much today. That's going to rotate our artwork, and I don't want any rotated trees. And then the symbol stainer. Now this is where things get really interesting. So I think this tool is a lot of fun. If we double click into our fill color, and let's actually grab our green here. So now we've got our green color selected, and we'll go a little bit cooler. So I'm going to go with a little bit of a cooler green, maybe a little bit darker. Right, so now I've got this, let's make sure that we don't have let's deselect our symbol set here. And then I'm gonna eyedropper. For some reason it went gray, and I don't want that. I'm gonna go into our lighter greens. So now I've got a green selected. I don't know why it's doing that. Okay, it seems to be working now. We got it working now. Okay, so I'm going to select that kind of green there, and we're going to go to the symbol stainer tool. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to paint in some colors. So wherever I'm clicking, I'm staining with that color that I picked. So if I go like a really cool blue, it's going to add some cooler blues into my trees. So I can start to kind of paint in some different colors and add some variation. If I double click in here and I go with maybe like a cool or a warmer, like an orange color, let's go with something like this. I can actually start to add some like fall. Remember, I need to switch to the type of tree, so I need to change to the other type of tree. So I can make these kind of have a little bit of like a fall color to them, kind of painting them in that way. So while I have the second trees kind of selected, I can go back into some of my other tools, like my scruncher tool and my shifter, and I can kind of push and pull some of these trees out. These won't affect the pine trees because I have the fluffy trees selected. So these are only affecting currently the tree type that I have selected in my symbol panel. Now switching to my cabins, we can add some of our cabins as well. So we'll kind of want to place some of these kind of around where they would be. Ooh, too close to the road there. There we go. Let's actually put it over here. I'm dragging too much with my here, let's deselect our symbol set so we can make a new symbol set of just our cabins here. There we go. We'll add some of these in here. We'll add some cabins. If I wanted to space them out, I would just go into my symbol sprayer here again, and I would use my shifter tool, and I could pull these kind of apart so they weren't so close together along my road here. And we could scale them down using the, sizer tool, holding down Alt if I wanted to make some of the ones kind of farther back smaller and some of the ones closer larger if I wanted to. All right, so the last thing I want to make sure I cover is I want to show you how you can edit symbols as well. So feel free to go ahead and continue kind of editing these using the sprayer, symbol sprayer and the symbol sprayer options here. But if you wanted to change these trees, like let's say we don't like the pine trees anymore, they don't look as detailed, we're gonna go in and edit our symbols. So you don't have to edit all of these trees individually. Once you've kind of put them down as a symbol, if I go into my edit symbol window, so if I double click on this tree, now I'm in a special symbol editing mode that lets me edit the piece of art that I created. So I don't have to edit each tree individually. All I have to do is edit it in the edit symbol window. So let's add some detail to this. I'm going to use Command or Control C and Command or Control F to copy and paste in front here, and we'll scale this up. I'm just going to add a little bit of dimension to this, kind of matching the dimension that we added to our other elements in our design. So we'll scale this down. I'm just using Alt or Option to scale in from the sides to kind of make our tree have a little bit of dimension to it. So I'll click on the second shape here. We'll double click. We'll make this a little bit darker. And then I'll go down here and I'll make this even darker still. So now it's got a little bit of dimension, similar to our cabin. And it's got a little bit more detail, similar to our other tree. And all I have to do to get out of here is click on this little back arrow in the top left. That's going to take me out of symbol editing mode, or I can hit escape. And it's going to take a minute. It's going to give me like the spinning wheel to make sure that it applies across all of my symbols. So you can see once I edit that symbol, it takes a minute because it's got a lot of instances to update. And it applies that new design to all of the variations, including the variation in size, including the variation in color. It keeps all of that stuff kind of, all the changes that we made essentially. So once you're ready and you want to share this to get some feedback in our Discord, you can go to export for screens. I am going to go ahead and save this out. And then if we go to our Discord, the link is in the description of this video. We can drag this into the Creative Challenge feedback channel to get feedback on our work and check out what everybody else has been working on. But that's going to do it for today. I hope you enjoyed this Illustrator illustration challenge. We went over editing and creating symbols. We went over the symbol sprayer and all the different options. We're live once a week on Wednesdays at 8:30 a.m. Pacific at behance.net/Adobe Live and on the Adobe Live YouTube. And stay here for more live content that's going to be coming up right after me. All right, bye everyone.